the character, whether it was Superman or Clark Kent, said, "I don't want to be American." And whoever wrote that
it was the creator of Superman, like the original creator, but
was just making such I never considered him American to begin with.
The thing was, he's supposed to be like the ultimate, like a symbol for America, and like that was what was kind of interesting because by the time he was like, I don't want to be American, it was almost like that was what America was thinking. Like most of the comic creators were like, fuck America at this point. Like patriotism is weird, and like everything about America kind of sucks recently. I don't feel like we should be the world police. And then Superman was like, I don't want to be American, but I am the world police, so I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be the world police. I'm not gonna have a nationality.
Looking at it that way, I definitely see the upside to it. I just didn't want the comic book to go. I didn't want it to say that because, like I said, I never thought of him as American, and I just didn't think it was necessary. I do see like the point of it. That's just like a personal thing.
I don't think that was the guy who made Superman's point. I just want to think of it that way, like because the guy who made Superman just hates America now. Like that's his whole thing.
Well,
like he used to be like the ultimate patriot, and I think that like.
Would you say he was an Iron Patriot?
I wouldn't say he was the Iron Patriot. Maybe more like a war machine.
Fuck you.
After you give me the thumbs up. But yeah, he does so many stupid things. I think that the only place that no one really none of the superheroes really deal with is that place that's like in some sort of crevice in Antarctica that's like a tropical area. Super weird. And like there's like a Tarzan type person that lives there. I can't remember what his name is though. But he's pretty awesome. Like he's like a beastmaster almost, and he can control all.
He reminds me of Kraven.
He's not quite Kraven. Like he doesn't hunt anybody. He's just lives off the land. He's kind of like Tarzan a little bit. Kraven's just kind of a dick.
I used to really like Kraven as a Spider-Man villain.
And
I'm not a big fan of Spider-Man.
I don't like him as a villain. I just kind of like him as a Spider-Man character. The character in Spider-Man. Like I liked Morpheus, living vampire, like a bunch when I was reading Spider-Man. Like not because he was some vampire and he could fly, just because of his story. Like he very much did not want to be a villain or a bad guy, but he just needed to live so bad.
Yeah, I do. I barely remember that.
Vampire.
Which
I love as a thing. Like that's a really good. Like he's not undead. He's been bitten by a radioactive bat. Like Spider-Man was, but his appearance changed so much. It was weird.
I'm trying to remember. There was another Spider-Man villain. Doc Ock, I always thought was a really good Spider-Man villain.
Yeah.
Because at least the way they painted him in the Spider-Man 2 movie,
he was awesome in that movie. But in like the series, he's kind of a dickhole.
Oh, definitely true. But the way they did him in that movie, I thought was super good because he kind of had that Mr. Freeze feel to him, where it's like he's doing bad stuff. Well, he was being like brain controlled by the claw arms, but at the same time, it was like he didn't feel like just this is a horrible guy. And I definitely like the idea of, and I don't want every villain to be like this because that would defeat the purpose.
I love gray areas.
Well, I also like the idea of redeemable villains.
Not all the time.
Not all the time. If they do it all the time, it gets old and it ruins it. But it's like every now and then, not everybody is just bad to be bad because they like bad. There are sometimes people who just mess up and can then later admit, I kind of suck. I like that about him. Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 3, on the other hand, not such a big fan of the villains they brought forth in those.
Spider-Man 3 was a piece of shit, but in that new Spider-Man that just pulled out, I thought that was cool, except the Lizard Man looked weird.
I was less a fan. I didn't think the Lizard was a great first villain, but also that being said, I do acknowledge the fact that it would have been really hard to come up with another decent first villain.
Honestly, if I was going to do it, I would do it that way. I would throw the Lizard in there because it seems like the easiest, and then the next one, I would set it up through the symbiote, because the symbiote needs to be redone hard style.
The symbiote needs to be redone.
And it never needs to talk about Carnage or any of the other symbiotes. It only needs to focus on Venom, and that's it forever.
Venom's the only one that's really necessary.
It's the only one worth a shit.
One thing that I'm not excited about the fact that Electro is going to be the next villain, and the look they've decided to give him.
Isn't he being played by Jamie Foxx or something?
He is. That doesn't bother me.
That bothers the shit out of me, because if I was gonna cast Jamie Foxx in a Spider-Man role, I would just cast him as Shocker. Shocker is the guy I would fucking cast as Jamie Foxx. That would be cool as shit. That would be badass, actually. I would totally be all about that shit. But not Electro. That's stupid to me.
And it's just the look they gave him. I'm very not excited about.
Also, like, as far as Electro's concerned, like, he was a dork. Like, he was a huge dork. I can't see Jamie Foxx as a dork ever. Like, Shocker was always just a badass. He was like a bad motherfucker all the time.
And he was always just looking for a fight.
Yeah, and it seems like Jamie Foxx could pull that off any damn day of the week.
That's one of the things.
Like, I don't feel like you should change a character just to suit like the needs of like a racial requirement. Like that as well is kind of stupid to me. Like you shouldn't just, you know. I feel like they try really hard to be like, oh, we're just gonna make him black because we need a black character. We're changing it up. Like, you know, like, fuck you. Who cares? Like, it doesn't. Just keep it the way it is. Nothing needs to change like that. Things don't need to change in that particular way all the time. Like it feels like they just try so hard with that kind of shit. I don't know if you ever feel like that, but I totally.
I kind of do. I hate when they push. This is one thing, and this is a big dig at
Big dick.
a big dig at a director that I used to love and now I don't like at all, and that was when M. Night Shyamalan made the Last Airbender movie, and for some reason he decided that all the firebenders had to be Indian. I had no clue where he was coming from, and I felt like at a certain point it was just kind of like he's just looking for an excuse to make everybody there Indian. Like none of them, they were clearly
everybody in that series was an Asian person.
Right.
Just decided, hey, let's make everybody not that ever. Let's make all the airbenders white.
I kind of understood where they were coming from in that regard, but at the same time, clearly they were supposed to be Asian.
Yeah.
If there were white people, it would have been few and far between.
I feel like the Airbender, like that's the only place where like white people I feel like work because like anybody can go and become a monk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, what if like white people interbred with the Airbenders at one point, and like that's why Aang looked kind of white in that regard. Because even in the series, he had like those big eyes.
Yeah, or just as a way to make him different, because the Avatar's supposed to be different. So just to say that that's why, I mean, I could kind of be on board with that. I'm not saying it's like that's an amazing decision, but I would understand it. What I didn't understand was a lot of decisions made in that movie. The biggest one being the not just airbending, the bending period in the TV show. All the moves they made almost directly correlated to what was going on with the element in the movie.
Also, they were based on real like kung fu.
Yeah, real martial arts. Every element had its basis in a real martial art that was researched with the deliberate effort of it being like that.
They even recorded people doing the martial arts for the show for a while to make sure they were doing it right each time.
That's why it looks so good in the show, because they wanted it to. They didn't just want it to be good, but they were so determined to make it good that they put in a level of effort that a lot of people would have said was too much.
Like in Metalocalypse, where like all of the fingers are in the right place on the guitars and shit. Everybody's playing the right notes for the song.
Yes.
That is attention to detail like a motherfucker.
That is a great detail to have, too. Because when you see people who play guitar, they can watch that and go, that's right.
Yeah. And
they're
also,
doing it right.
It's not even just that either. It's the fact that like when you like people would say that's too much, but when you take the time and you spend the effort to do stuff like that, it ends up being great. Like look, Avatar: The Last Airbender was fucking awesome. Legend of Korra, the first season wasn't as good, but I have high expectations for this next one.
It's one of those things, not as good, but in all fairness, Avatar: The Last Airbender was great.
Yeah,
so
true.
Korra was still good.
I'm not saying it was bad. I never said that.
Oh no one is saying it's bad.
Like I know that you weren't trying to put words in my mouth at that point. I was just saying like I wanted to make sure everybody at home knew.
Oh yeah.
That.
And I didn't want to disparage Korra either. It was just to say that The Last Airbender set an almost unreachable bar just because of how incredibly amazing it was.
If you could do anything different with it, what would you do?
With The Last Airbender or with Korra?
Last Airbender.
I honestly, that's one of the few shows where when I watch it, I can't think. I would have maybe made. Oh, I actually tell you what I would have done. I would have made the fight between Zuko and Azula a lot more intense and made it look like Zuko was not getting his ass beat the whole time.
Me too. I would have made them almost
He
equal. Like
he
he'd
was
train
getting
his ass off.
he was or I really wanted him to triumph in the sense of like,
I
fire
surpassed her.
or
That kind of shit.
well also just the fact that the
He
way
trained with dragons too. Like how could he not be better at
right
that shit
exactly
than
and
her?
just the fact that the way that he was originally taught and the way that she was still taught is that fire comes from hatred. And he's basically like, it doesn't just come from hatred. In fact, look at me doing it not coming from hatred and I'm beating you.
Yeah.
And that just didn't. Because if I remember right, he wins only because.
The reason I feel like that fight was kind of bullshit was because Katara was there.
Yeah. Well, doesn't Katara help him win? That's the point.
No, like she's trying to help him win, but really, like he takes a bullet for her at one point, which is why like he fucks up so bad.
Yeah.
Like he gets his ass whooped like almost on a technicality because he's trying to make sure that she doesn't die.
That friggin' lightning bending.
Yeah.
That was one of the few times where I felt like the bending was getting away from the core of what it was, but I did not care because it was just so cool.
I honestly feel like electricity is pretty badass. Like as far as like being able to control fire makes sense with electricity, but I feel like if at one point you're gonna have to like connect all the elements and like you have to make sure like everybody knows that as a bender you can bend everything. It doesn't matter. No one who's an avatar like is the only avatar. I feel like that would be cool because all elements are related and like they correlate with one another. Like you can do very specific things if you're like born like a firebender or something. But
Right.
I feel like since everything is so similar, if you learn to connect the elements, you should be able to bend all things. I feel like that's where they should be getting to. I don't feel like that's how it should be immediately when you're born. I feel like somebody should just figure that out, like some bender scientist alchemist situation would be neat.
I won't lie. I'm actually really glad that hasn't happened. Just because I really liked the division that came from the fact that waterbenders only really did water, and granted, because a lot of the way the elements are related, theoretically it might be possible to do it and not be the avatar. But I just like the way that it created, the water tribe is very specifically they're a certain kind of people, and the firebenders are usually a specific kind of people. And I just like that it created those classes.
If anybody was going to do it, it'd be the Earthbenders, since the Earth Kingdom is so vast. There would be
Earth Kingdom is huge.
There'd be one area where somebody was like focusing his ass off on perfecting everything.
Should be Boomy.
That would be neat, but
but he's dead.
Boomy can't bend anything in at least the new Boomy can't. Like the new Boomy is Aang's son, named him for Boomy.
Yeah.
And
I was talking about old school King of the Earthbenders Boomy, who was a champion.
Like as far as like the metal benders are concerned, I feel like you could turn that around into like bending lightning, or even like twisting it so that you could bend lightning back at somebody if they were shooting lightning at you.
I liked metal bending. I just hope that's as far as earth bending goes, because even when Toph first did it, I was like, okay, that's just Toph. That's not become an immediate device. And when did it in
there's
Korra,
only a few people who can do it, right? Like only people who are insane can do it. I think they went over that. Like people who are like over emotional, like almost bipolar, have that ability.
I do remember them briefly maybe bringing that up. All I do really remember about that though is just that in the first episode of Korra, you immediately see dozens more metal benders than you ever saw before.
Because they have an elite team of crazy people.
And it was just like a massive, I guess, kind of just shock, where it was like, oh my gosh, I completely didn't think about the fact that this has now just become a thing.
Well, I feel like you're gonna have to advance like every fucking element one step now, because two elements have taken it a step further in the first season, or in the first series. Like, fire became lightning, and like earth became metal at one point.
Yeah, water became blood.
But they haven't really done air. Like if you're gonna keep taking it a step further, you have to like do it with everybody, and you have to do it a couple of times.
I think the only reason they don't do it with air is Air is what is like the only element where if you really think about it, you can't lose with air.
Yeah.
You really can't.
But the thing is, I don't want it to be like a stupid thing, like because like
that's why I think
Aang's
they don't do it
grandson,
though. Because I think if they did, it would be stupid.
They did some sort of like alluding to it though too. Like Aang's grandson, that little kid, like he fart bended at one point. I don't know if you remember that.
I do kind of remember that, though I try not to think about it. Because the big thing is air in certain facets can already trump every element.
It's true. Like,
so it's just like, I feel like...
Especially fire. Like, I don't know why he was having such a hard time with Zuko. He could have just taken the air away from his surroundings.
I think that's just not the way Aang operates.
Well, yeah, airbenders are all about, trickery and, retreat, defense.
Which, that kind of makes sense, because if the airbenders had the mindset of a firebender, every other race would, or not race, but every other kind of bender would already be dead.
Yeah, pretty much.